During the beginning of World War II in '42, when Andrew and Seville were drafted, Seville was assigned to a mechanical training where he learned internal combustion motor engineering, and in fact, um, he became a master mechanic that kept General Patton's tanks rolling. Uh, Andrew, um, on the other hand, was more into chemistry, so he ended up with a 4.2 chemical warfare battalion, which handled white phosphorus, which is very dangerous. And his group never had an incident, an accident, because he basically was a very good chemist. He knew how to handle white phosphorus. Uh, that's really how Seville and Andrew, when they talked to me, um, I sort of reinforced my interest in chemistry over physics or anything or botany, uh, and that's true to this day. What did I do for fun? Nothing, really, because when I was in elementary, seventh, eighth, ninth, all the way to the time I graduated in '46, the community was at war, or it was in the Depression, and I would work at farmers market unloading trucks and get paid a quarter to help unload a truck. Uh, but the real payoff was that damaged fruit or damaged vegetables, I would fill a gunny sack and take it home, and that became vegetable stew for eating. As a youth, I rarely went to any movie simply because the money wasn't there, even though entries would only be 15 cents or a quarter. Uh, that didn't happen. So I entertained myself, and my dad would help by reading books. And since I had developed a interest in math, um, a book that caught my interest was one on physics and one on chemistry. Um, because even though the biology teacher, Mr. Fisher, was very good in what he taught general stuff that had almost nothing to do with the real photosynthesis and chemical process and physical process that were going on. Um, except for one item. He explained the Archimedes principle of moving the earth with a leverage. If you had a place to put the fulcrum and a lever long enough, where a certain amount of small force would do a big thing if you had the right mechanism. And, and that caught my interest. A question posed to me is, where did you get the motivation to excel? And from as long as I can remember, both my mother and father emphasized education. And their logic was, if you know it very well and it's in your head, nobody can steal it from you. Besides that, if you apply it in a way that's better and more efficient and effective than others, you'll always have a job, and you'll always be thought highly of. Uh, and that's enough, or should be enough. But more important is, if you know something very well that you like and understand and enjoy doing, you'll really, we think you'll really have a good life. And I think my professional development in history is testament to those ideas. I attended high school uh, starting in 1941, which is when World War II started, and the nation was at war. The uh, local school district canceled football games, basketball games. In fact, since all the men had been drafted into the military, we were encouraged to take jobs after school. And during 1942 to 1945, I worked for the Pepsi Cola Bottling Company on 8th and Adams Street in Gary, where I cleaned the offices after the workday and took inventory in the warehouse because Mike Hallow, the manager, discovered I was very good with numbers, and I was also very accurate. So I recall only one time in the whole time when I was off by just one case of Pepsi Cola, and other than that, I was right on. So, and was paid a total of $25 a week for everything I did, which I gave to my mother, and she kept 20, and I kept 5. The books that my teacher Lenore Smith gave me were basic reading books that were, as I realized later, advanced and beyond what my classmates were reading. And I comprehended them and just kept reading. My dad picked up on that and began buying books. In fact, the first book he bought was a used physics book, which he just gave to me, and I read it. But the book that caught my attention was a chemistry book that dealt with the chemical processes that go on in plants with photosynthesis, and led to my interest in biology and biochemistry. Tell me. My wife, Elizabeth Jean Rose Morales, one day said to me, someone's got to do something about what's going on in San Jose. So we began uh, learning about and dealing with those issues, which led to our being in a position to tell Alicia Valenzuela and Maxine Goodman when they offered El Observador up to close down, and we said, don't close it down, we'll take it. So we bought it from them, which is how we got it to El Observador Publications, because it occurred to both of us, both Betty and I, that the newspaper was the proper vehicle to disseminate information which countered a lot of the bias, bigotry, and prejudice that was going on in the community that was directed against the Mexicans. Betty encouraged me to start writing about Cesar Chavez and his quest to get equitable pay and safe working conditions in the field. Um, Her basic statement to me was, somebody has to do something about that, what's going on in there. So using El Observador as a bullhorn, we began uh, factually reporting what was really going on. And whenever certain people got embarrassed, whatever they were doing that was self-serving or exploiting the community stopped. And that included some members of our own community who were doing that. Uh,
Tell me
so
about the Cesar Chavez essay. Excuse me, let me cut right there.
now one of the things we did was to come up with the idea of having a Cesar Chavez essay contest because there was a movement to make Cesar Chavez March 31st birthday a national holiday, but it only ended up being a state holiday in the state of California. And to promote that at various schools, East Side School District and the other school district, um, El Observador promoted an essay contest and gave a monetary award to the essay that was chosen to be the best by a panel of readers. And that got, according to some of the teachers that talked to me, um, kids interested in and also experienced in making some money if they could write something that was excellent enough to be read by a bunch of others and a team and deemed to be very good by certain literary judges. So, in fact, we also promoted uh, journalism amongst the kids because that began one day when, in September of '86, when four Latino Mexican American students came to me and said, um, we're getting screwed by the San Jose State journalism school. They just passed a new accreditation level that requires an internship in a community newspaper. We have visited all the papers, all of which are owned and operated by Anglos, and none of them would take any of us as interns. So therefore, none of us will graduate with a journalism degree. And finally, someone said, go see Hilbert. He's the publisher of El Observador. So in '86, I created 4 internships in journalism and put up personal funds to underwrite it because there was no time to raise funds. So 4 students, Damian Trujillo is one of them, and he's still visible as the producer of Comunidad del Valle, a Sunday program that's devoted to community. Uh, the It took off from there. Every year I would go over to the School of Journalism, make sure that the El Observador newspaper was in the um, three-ring binder opportunity book in the School of Journalism office, that El Observador had internships to offer. And when I learned that some of the students had financial problems, we put up um, the money they needed after consulting them with their aspirations and what was the true need. Turned out to be very modest. You know, I think the most we ever put out was $1,200 for one student. But most of them were short $400, $500, $600, $800, which um, basically we funded from the profits of the newspaper. In 35 years of operating El Observador, Betty and I never took a penny out of El Observador. Whatever profits the paper made stayed in the community, either as grants and aids or scholarships or paid internships. So, in fact, I feel I have a level of satisfaction from that effort because today's managing editor of El Observador is Hilario, who Arturo Hilario, who is one of those interns 25, 30 years ago. And he got interested in journalism when he heard me speak of the power of the speech and the written word at a work session seminar at one of the schools on the east side. Uh, then the last 3 years, my eyesight has been failing, and I realized that I can't really do the community services I used to do. I helped organize, the former Mexican American Chamber of Commerce became the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce when I was president back in 1985, and it's gone on to be. I was part of the group that helped the city of San Jose allocate $125,000 per year towards its operations. They still get that amount of money every year. That's the sort of thing I was involved in. I entered into El Observador Publications because, in my assessment, the Mexican community was getting a lot of misinformation and being misguided, and El Observador became a paper that my wife and I bought and reorganized, and its main purpose was to publish useful, truthful, and factual information, which earned El Observador the name of being the enemy of the San Jose Mercury News, because I took on the Mercury News when it would publish only negative stuff about the Mexican community. Um, the reality is that I was told by many that I would be that te van a agarrar, which means in Spanish they're going to get you. But my feeling was that if you told the truth and the facts of any matter, they couldn't get you, because even your opponents had to deal with the same uh, universe of facts and truthfulness. And if you got there with your version first or even afterwards and corrected those who wanted to put spin meistering into the issues, which was quite often in the body politic. I got involved in politics in 85, 86 and helped Blanca Alvarado get elected as first city councilwoman in the city of San Jose, because I noted that despite a significant Hispanic community, the City Council of San Jose had no representation of that community. Today, I took great satisfaction recently when I realized that out of 10 City Council seats in the City of San Jose, 5 were occupied by Mexican Americans, 3 women and 2 guys. Um, so the field has changed significantly. Um, Unfortunately, we are very loyal towards our leaders, and there's some leaders to which we owe no loyalty, and we got to learn how to withdraw our support from those leaders and give it to the leaders who really do the most good for the greatest number of people. There's 1 or 2 leaders in our community who are self-serving and need to be basically not supported. Um, I made those values and opinions very clear in my opinion pieces, which I published in El Observador. And although I was told not to do what I did, because I would be sued for libel, slander, and defamation of character, my lawyer told me if it's the truth and you can prove it to be a fact, those kind of suits will not stand in court. And although I was sued several times, nobody ever won. Because my instructions to El Observador's reporters and writers were, you can write about anything you want, but my interest is political and social issues, and if you stick to the facts of the matter and attribute statements to others correctly, but never to me, because I will not make those statements, I will let others do that. Our job is to report them and to disseminate them to the greatest number of readers in our community so that they become informed and involved, because eventually they have to be present in all civic groups of this community.